Hello, everyone. I hope everybody's having a wonderful day. I know that it is often challenging because it's the beginning of the week, and I honestly don't know where the weekend went. So, today on this live, though, we've got an exciting guest, and we are going to talk all things that have to do with religion and Mormonism, and someone who has come out of that alive, and that would be your tank top friend who will be with me today. I see she's just logged on, and so I'm going to let her answer some questions as my guests normally do, and so I am thankful to be able to talk to her. Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me on.
Oh, anytime. It's good to see you. Did you have a good rest of your weekend?
Yeah, I did. Now I got to get all the tax paperwork together that I've been putting off.
That's never fun, is it?
Yeah. Well, and well, Utah had general conference this weekend, so I was trying to stay busy, not really thinking too much about that. And when I had a funny little moment, I would create a little video and then I would back away.
Yeah, yeah. I've started seeing all the memes that have come out about it, and you know, uh, all the fun stuff that they proclaim. So it's definitely unique, to say the least.
Can
Uh,
I say something about your pipe smoking? I love that you have that on for me today because I remember when I was in first grade, I had this horrible ear infection, and my uncle, who was Catholic, so
hmm
smoke pipes and drink wine. He always had that going on when I was over at his house. I had this horrible ear infection, and I was just to the point of just weeping.
Oh,
He said, "Are you okay with me? Let me blow some of that pipe smoke that I have in here into your ear." And he did that for about 5 to 10 minutes. And I remember the smell, and it
yeah.
was a nice, calming aroma. I was just so worked up. When you're 6 and you have a horrible earache, you're just like, life is just
Yeah.
not good right now. And it helped the whole night. I was able to sleep. And so every time I see you smoking a pipe, it just brings me back to the aroma of the pipe, how kind my uncle was. And I just love everything about the pipe smoking.
Well, no, I appreciate that. It's kind of like a form of meditation.
Yeah.
I find that like when guys smoke cigars, well, I have nothing against cigars at all.
Right.
Um, when guys smoke cigars, you can still be angry, but when you're smoking a pipe, it's really difficult to be angry. You automatically get a little more contemplative, right? And I love the aroma, and the fact that it doesn't stick to walls and stuff like that. And so it's just something that calms me.
Yeah.
I believe I was interviewing Kat, and she called me a pipe witch. I'm like, oh, I'll be a pipe witch. That's fine with me. That's my thing.
Fun.
Uh, okay, so let's jump right in. Would you let the audience know who you are and introduce yourself for a moment?
Thank you so much, audience, for tuning into this. This is my first ever live. I'm a little nervous, so please be patient with me. And I know that you have a lot on your plate, so thank you for taking the time to listen to this content. I am an ex-Mormon, post-Mormon, depending on who I'm talking to and the mood that I'm in. I MLM activist. Now, my professional background is clinical laboratory science. I had been doing that up until about 2 years ago to pursue a field in personal wellness and nutrition. And I am currently in a Pilates teaching training program. I am also a spoonie. I have two autoimmune disorders. One is Graves' disease that affects the thyroid gland, And the second one is premature ovarian insufficiency or premature ovarian failure, which leads to infertility. Did use an egg donor to conceive my twins.
Mm.
And at some point, I will share that journey in my content. But right now, I want to focus on the Mormonism aspect and how that really ties into MLMs and how MLMs can prey on vulnerable people like myself who have infertility, who are first time mothers, and who also have health problems.
All right. Hell of an introduction. Amazing. You got a lot of comments here. People supporting you.
Thank you.
So it's great to see Goddess of Tetris on here. She's a friend of mine. Known her for a while. Exmo Candles. I just got to know them today.
Yes.
Thank you. Here, I'm excited. So I'm excited. All these people that have left the garden.
Yes, left the garden. I am planning on doing a live with her at some point when we can coordinate our times together.
That's amazing. Well, it's nice. I left my garden. I left the. Oh, okay, so that being the case, why don't you give us, a little bit of your religious background, your growing up? Like, what were you steeped in it from the beginning, or was it something that came later in life?
My situation was very unique in that my parents were converts in the Midwest. And so they converted around the mid 70s. My dad actually served a mission for the church at 23. He basically does not say anything really positive. My mom and I have talked about how he feels that he was just a babysitter because, as you can imagine, there's that 4-year gap difference between him and the people that he would be companions with. And I quote from him, the choice was either these kids would go to jail, go to the army, or serve a mission. And so he has a lot of interesting mission stories to tell me. I could make a whole segment just on that. And my mom, so he actually converted from the Baptist church. And I think his
Wild.
fiance was looking into Mormonism and it just wasn't for her. And so he ended up staying and converting my grandmother, his mom, and my aunt and my grandfather. And there was just this huge growth in the Midwest for Mormons, for the Mormon church. Like, I think there was just this growth in a lot of these towns. We saw it in different states. So there were a lot of people converting to Mormonism in the 70s and 80s. And now we see that there's a big decline within generations like myself and the kids that are younger. My mom was raised in the Catholic Church. She actually did go to a Catholic school. So she had her own doctrine, and she's a lot of fun in a lot of ways because she used to take me to the Catholic Church even after she was Mormon, and she would pray to the saints. I just kind of like that she was more nuanced and she would talk to the priest in our hometown. I think she missed that aspect of Catholicism where the culture is a little more laid back, or at least the one there in my hometown. And I felt a sense of peace being in that chapel, and you could just go in there at any time. Whereas with the Mormon church, it's locked up. You have no access to go in there, which I didn't realize that maybe somebody would like to go there and just feel at peace. So she would go there. I was not born in the covenant.
Okay.
Meaning that they did not get sealed in the temple. My parents, I believe that there might have been some things going on before they got married, because my parents got married in April of 77 and I was born in October of 77. And every time I've asked my mom, she says that I was born premature. So take that information for what you will. My dad has actually had conversations with me about boyfriends, and he says, well, you don't want to end up like me and your mom with you coming too soon. So they haven't quite gotten their story straight on that. But I was blessed in I as a baby, I was blessed in the Mormon church. When you are blessed, you are given an identification number, a membership record number. I went to church every Sunday with my parents. I would hear the discussions on the subtle things with racism, with misogyny, with the purity culture, actually being judged for worthiness when I wanted to go to the temple as a youth. Why I came across some whitewashed history in high school. It was something I came across with the Hoffman papers, which I hadn't really heard about until I was just kind of searching up Mormonism. So I knew that there's some whitewashed history because I had never heard about it. My parents didn't talk about it when it happened in the 80s. And I didn't really like how the Native Americans were portrayed. So there were just huge items being put on my shelf growing up. My parents, however, never made me go to early morning seminary. I have no idea why they didn't, unless it was my mom not wanting to get up that early in the morning to drive me.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, that is different.
So when I was in my late teens was when I really just didn't like going to church. It wasn't an aspect of was it true or not. It was more of I don't like it. It's boring. I don't like the messages. All I'm hearing about is the purity culture, me trying to find someone who is also Mormon to go to the temple. And the dating pool was so small there. There's no slight, there's no diss on the people I went to church with, but just they expected you to just pair up whether or not you were compatible with them, because as long as you were Mormon, you could make it work. And that's kind of the messages I got, along with just education not being emphasized for women having a career. And I really wanted that because I had mentors that I grew up with. My great aunt, she was older when she got married, but she always worked. I have an aunt now who basically has always been a career woman. And so there were a lot of feminists in my family. My grandmother, the one that converted to Mormonism, she actually went to school and got an accounting degree, and she was in charge of the family rental business. So there was just a lot of like conflicting influences going on, and I just didn't like going to church anymore. So I would skip and I would go to the lobby with one of my other friends that liked to skip as well. She was more rebellious than me. And so I eventually got a job, and then I found that I was working a lot on Sundays, and I just kind of became inactive. And that's the early part. And I also found a boyfriend at that time that was not Mormon. He did take the discussions, but I didn't really know what he thought about that, and I didn't want to force anyone. Exo candles. I just love you so much. But yeah, so I dated him for a year before we ended up having sex, and I was with him for almost 5 years up until the point that I just realized I was with him for too long and we had separated our differences, and there was some things that he would say to me that weren't very kind, that because I went to school, he would say things like, I don't know why you're using that word. It's like you're trying to sound like you're smart, kind of comments. So there toward the end, when I broke up with him, I used the Mormonism, you're not a Mormon guy, so I'm going to break up with you, instead of just saying there. Well, I did try to say there's a lot of other issues here, but he really took to heart the Mormonism thing, and I did push that thing hard. So am I angry at Mormonism because of that? No, because it really kept me from marrying somebody that I really didn't want to marry, just because I'd been with them for so long and I'd lost my virginity to him. So, and we just became different people. I moved out and moved to another part of the state, and I was hearing things from back home, like he was hanging out with other girls and stuff. And so yeah.
So we have a question here from Left,
Yeah.
or actually a statement. It says,
Okay.
fellow ex-woman who had a non-member boyfriend and made him take discussions. What are discussions?
Okay, so the missionaries come over to someone's house, and the first one that I recall, the missionaries talked about Joseph Smith's first vision. Now, we know that there are multiple accounts of the first vision and different stories related to that. But they did that, and they talked about the Book of Mormon being another testament of Jesus Christ. But they weren't super pushy at all. And it was just the one meeting. Of course, they came by unannounced when he had stayed the night. And in the morning, they came over and they're just knocking on my door. And I'm like, shit. They're going to know that he stayed the night over here.
What'd you do?
Well, I mean, I just acted all casual, like everything got cleaned up. And I mean, it was like 11 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday, so it wasn't super early. I wondered why they weren't in church, but maybe they were at a different ward building at the time.
So throughout this process, obviously, you're a wealth of knowledge when it comes to this topic. How did Mormonism impact your life? Like, was there anything that really hit home that you struggled getting over, or anything along those lines?
Well, when I was creating my thoughts with Mormonism, I actually, and this may be blasphemous to say with the ex-Mormon community, but I found that I had very good quality traits that were instilled in me. It was, and I don't know if it was me or if my personality type A personality, black and white thinking. I was a parent pleaser, teacher's pet. I thrived on positive reinforcement as a child.
Mm-hmm.
So thinking back, that the teachings of Mormonism is to stand for truth and righteousness. We are an industrious and hardworking people. as far as the Mormons go. I still feel like I still have that within me. And we are encouraged to have an education and to use our thinking skills, maybe not in the most correct way, but we're all very successful. And the way that we can communicate, we're used to public speaking because we go up in front of an audience. We're also used to being a peculiar, now I can't say it, peculiar
Yeah,
people.
either.
Times fast when you've got cotton mouth and you're stressed out.
Oh,
But not stressed out, but you know what it's like
yeah.
to in front of people. And with that comes a thick skin because you are teased for being Mormon and for your beliefs. I suppose that these traits also left me out of the church. They pulled me away from the church. But I will tell you that ex-Mormons are a force to be reckoned with, because with all of these things that were instilled in us growing up, when we decide we're done, we do not care what people think about us because we've already been attacked for being Mormon. And so now we just have a whole group of other people teasing us and disliking us.
Wow. I never thought of it that way, but that's a very valid thought. That's interesting.
I,
So
oh,
wow,
go ahead.
how did your family react to you not staying with Mormonism?
So, because my parents are converts, most of our family members aren't Mormon to begin with. We have mixed faiths. My mom's side is all Catholic. In fact, my aunt, my mom's sister, married a Jewish guy, but then she decided to raise her kids Catholic. And my dad's side of the family, let me just say they are very colorful individuals. I even have an uncle who's like full on biker, looks like a wild man. So they have always picked family over differences in our beliefs. It's so heartbreaking to me to see parents shunning their kids because they have a difference in belief. And that's not really what I got with my parents. So with my parents, they sent my records to, I became inactive again. I guess we'll go into that a little bit more with the next question. But I will say that my parents didn't really react in an angry way. I sent them a letter. I said, I resigned from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. You taught me to be an honest and forthright individual, someone that has integrity, and I could no longer belong to an organization that I personally did not believe in. And that's how I put it. I put it more like complimentary on their part, that I loved them, that they instilled these positive traits, and I will never forget that. But at the same time, I have to live with authenticity. And it was just something that I couldn't do with Mormonism. And so once they got that letter, they called, and it was during the middle of the week. And they almost never call me at the middle of the week. So I knew what this was about. And they were just really quiet. And my mom just asked me a few questions like, well, how did you resign from the church? How did you know how to do that? And I
Yeah.
said, a website for people that quit Mormon. And it told me exactly what to do. So, but I'm not away from the church. I haven't really resigned. They just have a special file for people who have resigned from the church. because I'm sure that my name is attached to that member record.
Yeah.
If I want to be rebaptized again, I can do that. That's what they said in the letter that I got from the church.
Hmm. Of course, right? They'll take you back.
But
Um,
my family and my parents are very private and they don't really discuss too much about even how they were converted or how they believed that it was true. And I've never asked them. And now I'm at a point where we just don't really talk too much about church, maybe about certain people in the ward that they've had some issues with, but nothing like regards into a belief
hmm,
or doctrine.
hmm.
I do remember one time though, I told my dad that what you do in the temple is quite similar to Freemasonry.
Yeah.
And he bought a book from Deseret Book, and it was like this thick. This is after I left, and it was a full-on apologetic book that somebody wrote. So there's something at Deseret Book that helps members somewhat come to peace with what's happening in the temple. But I thought, you're giving this to me now
Ah,
after all of this. But it was, I wondered if he had bought that and just thought, I'm going to read this and see what her concerns are. And then he passed it on to me. And yeah, I donated that thing to DI.
uh,
Someone might do it more than me now.
so you wrote a letter, which I obviously have seen. Left the garden had said kudos to you. It's funny because I did the same thing for people that I was close to when I left religion, and so it does give them some. I'm thankful that your parents um, were kind about it. You know, I meet so many and talk to so many people that have left religion one way or another, no matter what religion, and they're banished or suddenly their parents no longer talk to them. I have one that doesn't talk to me because I left, 3 years. So it's exciting to know that happened for you.
Yeah.
And hello, good to see you. Thank you for saying hola. Also, I wanted to ask you because obviously you had to go through a deconstruction process, right? And so where are you now in your deconstruction process?
I will tell you what I tell my kids, and that I'm to the point where I just say I don't know, and I'm okay with that. Because I realized that every single religion is the true religion. They say the religion. And so I do like the idea of the mindfulness, like what you're doing. And so I've gone into yoga, I do meditation every day. I do like Noah Rashetta's Secular Buddhism podcast. So I am currently listening to that. I like him because it doesn't go into the dogma of Buddhism, just what we can learn. And it's just becoming the better whoever you are. And so I like that there's no label or they don't put you in a box. So that's where I'm at.
I think that I love that response. I have been asked before multiple times, Brad, what are you? Atheist, agnostic, spiritual, whatever it is. And I always refuse to answer. It's like people ask, I've been in a box for, I was in a box for 48 years of my
Yeah.
life. I'm not going back to a box. And the thing about deconstructing that a lot of people fail to realize, it's not so much the tearing down as much as growing through it. Deconstruction is growth.
Mm-hmm.
And the more I learn, the more I realize I don't know half of anything.
Yeah.
And so I'm just going to grow and refuse to be labeled. I think that's wise on your part.
Well, I want to focus more on the here and now. I want to focus on the people living, the people that write to me, and also the people that don't like me. I want to understand them. I want to operate on more nuance instead of this black and white thinking that I naturally gravitate towards. You're either with us or against us. And I want to focus on just kindness because even just smiling at someone on the street, now that I don't have to wear a mask anymore, it's good to just spread happiness and kindness and to be empathetic toward what people are going through. And the fact that I left Mormonism, I don't need to put labels on other people, and I don't need to be judging them because they wear tank tops or because they drink or they smoke. I want to see how they treat people. Are they mean? Are they bullies? What do they stand for? So those are the things that I actually look forward to and look for in people and what I try to do in myself.
I love that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You know, being raised in religion or brought up in religion, the focus so much is on the afterlife.
Yes.
Uh, you know, there are a few things they try to make sure that you don't do in the present life, you know, like have sex outside of wedlock and stuff like that, right? But the whole focus is on, hey, life's going to be better after this
Yeah.
life, right? And we miss the living now.
Yes.
It's really sad.
It is.
Because like this is just you got to just make it through this, and then everything will be okay,
Mhm.
right? And it's not. I don't find that to be the case, obviously. Um, and there's so much that I had missed because I was
Mhm.
thinking that way. That I just want to grab every moment of the living now.
Well,
Uh,
and think about all of the Mormon kids who had friends that had birthday parties on Sundays and the Mormon kids couldn't go. That's just one little aspect. Think about the fun that they could have had and celebrating the birth of their classmate or their friend. So much is focused on being in a church and worshiping and studying, and that's good to a certain extent, but we need to have a balance with taking care of people that we know and that we love.
I agree. I agree. So let me ask you this: um, say that someone either now or later pops on and listens to this IG live. What advice would you give to someone that's still Mormonism but looking to possibly leave?
Ooh, that is really tough. It depends on the person because I know a lot of PMOs and I was one for a year. And what that is stands for is physically in, mentally out. They move
Interesting. Okay.
in for their business. Their business might suffer if they leave.
Mm.
They move in for their partner, their husband or wife. They may be in for their kids. So I do not judge PMOs at all. Like my heart just really goes out to them. But what's fun about PMOs is that they're willing to share what is happening internally. So XMOs like me don't have to go and do research or don't have to wonder what's going on. I would be very cautious with how you talk to your parents and your siblings and friends who are still TBM. I totally went about it all wrong because I started spouting off all this problematic stuff, and what ended up happening was that they just would dig their heels in deeper, or I would hear a testimony, or are you not reading your scriptures? Are you not praying? Like, what are you doing? And so it's just very hard for somebody to actually leave. But I would just kind of test the waters by asking questions. And yeah, it's very difficult decision depending on that person. Like if it's a marriage or work, I could understand why PMOs are in. Now, those people who just absolutely cannot stand it, that's where I would just start asking questions. And how I did it, it was super easy because I had limited contact with my parents already. I was an adult by that time in my late 20s. And sometimes people, y'all just gotta write it out and just think about the massive amount of patience that you are building within you to find that great time to leave. And so just be very gentle and careful about how you go about doing it. And you don't even have to tell certain people. Like if you see an uncle that you haven't seen and don't see for months, what does it matter what he says or does in comparison to what you do? And it's fine to go to church if it's not super triggering as somebody who doesn't believe anymore. I've gone to my parents' ward after I left, and the only reason why I went is because there's people that still love me and care about me in the church. I did show up with pants on before pants were cool. They took my pants idea. It was because I was traveling, but I wore some nice business casual pants like I would at my former job. So just bide your time, really think about where you're at in your position if you can leave. If you can't, just write it out. And I find that writing is very therapeutic. If you can do so, sometimes that's not always possible because parents do spy on their kids. Pants.
Balls.
Yeah, I got some serious ones, Lindsay.
You know, and I would agree with you totally, is it's your story to tell. It's your decision of when.
Yes.
It's nobody else's.
Right.
So, I, after I left, I didn't tell anybody until about a year and a half down the road because
Wow.
I'm doing it for myself. And then I decided who I was going to tell, right? And the timing and what conversation I allowed to take place. I created those boundaries, right? And so, but it's all in your time. Everybody does it different.
Yep.
And I think that's a great point that you make. That's awesome.
Well, and for me, it took years to the point of resignation. And the only reason why I resigned was because they did not respect my boundaries.
Hmm.
I wrote a letter saying I wanted no contact, and I had two separate home teachers come to my house, to my apartment. And that was when it just reminds me too much of an abusive relationship where you want to cut things off with them, but then they keep showing up. And I was actually very triggered by that because I was in an abusive relationship a person that I was engaged to, and he did not respect my boundaries in many ways. And when I went to therapy, is when I realized that what I had been taught and the religion that I was in, this was an abusive relationship. And I couldn't be a part of that anymore.
Hmm. Hmm. Great point. All right. So we could dissect Mormonism all day. All right. But for time purposes, I want to make sure that everybody knows, the people that are watching now and the people that will watch in the future here, how do we find and follow you or support what you're doing?
You can follow me here on Instagram, your tank top friend. I do also have a YouTube channel. I did deactivate my TikTok account. It was just too much for me all at once to process. I also will be creating anti-MLM content as well. And there are some things happening within that world that we can write letters to the FTC about how they can be more transparent in earnings claims and other things so that people have the informed decision to decide if they want to participate in an MLM. It's the same with the religion. Um, we were not personally, I was not taught everything, and a lot of truth was omitted. And yeah, people will not stand up for that.
Very good, very good. Listen, for all those that follow me, let me just encourage you to pop on over and follow your tank top friend. She is full of information. I know this live, we can never truly cover all of the information that's in your
Oh,
head, your mind, all of that. But let me just encourage everybody that is not following her to pop on over, give her a follow. I have been incredibly fortunate to get to know you better.
thank you.
Your message, I'm totally on board with your message. And we'll have to do another live together, MLMs and whatever.
Oh, that is what I'm salivating for. I just can't wait. I'm like Mr. Burns. Yeah. So, yes, I would love that because I could spend a long time talking about that as well.
Oh, cool. Empath says done. Good.
You
Uh,
know,
listen, we will do this again.
yes.
You really seriously, thank you so much. It's an honor to get to talk to you. Thank you for sharing your story, at least part of it. I know there's a lot more. So
Yeah,
yeah. So, but we'll cover some more later. Sound good?
yes, and if you want more information, if you want to follow me, it's definitely on Instagram. I will be giving more information about why I left. I've done some reels that were super easy and fast. Basically, when my shelf broke, it's me standing in front of the St. Louis Temple, and that in a nutshell was what broke my shelf. If you would like to check that out. But I do have a message. Can I share one with you for people who are still active in the Mormon church? And see, people are probably upset because I use the word Mormon. They don't even want us using Mormon. But I was taught that Mormon meant more good. And it's not an attack on you personally. I'm speaking to you who are active in the Mormon church. Any organization that expects that level of commitment demands criticism. And you are expected to give so much to this organization. And for me to criticize or point out these things, this is part of the improvement that they could do with their time and their money. They need to investigate a lot of these things, that the reason why people left, why they leave. And I feel as if it's like a parent who a child tries to talk to them and say, here's the issues that I have. And they're just turning around and they're not even looking at you. They're on their cell phone doing this and putting stuff that they want to put out into the world. And, it's just like with basketball. I'm going to use that because a lot of people are going to be watching basketball tonight. And it would be like my friend telling me that KU sucks and they hate KU. They hate everything about KU. Well, I'm a KU fan, but I don't care if they say that they suck. That's not them attacking me. But see, we were raised to believe that it was a personal attack on you. And so I just want to make sure that people know that about me, that, yeah, I can be irreverent at times, but that's how I process my trauma. And what was I going with this? Choose to follow me or not, or the Exmos, but just listen and just say, is there something that I can do for you? Instead of giving me a testimony of how you feel about the church. Really figure out how you can best help people who are struggling without putting the belief system in front of it. If they are going through a faith transition, just be their friend in other ways. You can even set boundaries and say, look, I'm not really comfortable with you sharing some of the stuff that's problematic for you with the church, but we can still be friends. I'm still the person that I was. I just don't practice Mormonism anymore.
Right.
So I have to say to my Mormon friends, and what are you doing listening to me? No, just kidding. What are you doing listening to Brad Life Coach? All right, that's all I wanted to say. You guys have been so awesome. Thank you for listening and for your support and for following me.
Well, thank you once again for taking your time, sharing your message, and just being here to answer questions. I really appreciate it. I know there are lots of others that we're going to answer hopefully in the future.
Okay.
Well, so you're awesome. Thank you very much.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.